Hey everybody, this is Dr. Jonny and welcome to our webinar, 7 Spices That Can Save Your Life. Now I know that may sound like a little bit of hyperbole, but I think by the time we finish this short excursion into the benefits of spices, you will agree with me that these are probably some of the most underrated substances in the entire world, things that you can add to your food that really cost very little. Look at them, they're gorgeous, they're easier to use than you might imagine, and the amount of health benefits that accrue to these babies is just so underappreciated. In fact, I call spices stealth health foods because people really don't realize just how valuable they can be and how well researched they are and all the benefits that have been found to accrue to these wonderful spices. So I've selected 7 of them to go over, and let's get into them right now. And let's start with a spice which I actually gave a star to in my book, The 150 Healthiest Foods on Earth. So that's already a group of fantastic healthy foods, and this was such a superstar that it got a star among stars, and that's turmeric. Now, turmeric is the yellow spice that makes Indian food yellow. It's typical of all the curries, all these foods that you see that are yellow and bright and orangey. They're getting that color from turmeric. And the main ingredient in turmeric, the active ingredient, the one that confers all the health benefits, are a group of compounds known as curcuminoids, or collectively as curcumin. And curcumin is what really gives turmeric its superstar status in the spice world. And it just does so many things. This is a chart that just shows you all of the different pathways that curcumin's involved in and all the different areas that it's been researched to be beneficial in. And we're going to get into some of that research in just a minute. Let me just say a word about the research that you're going to see. I'm going to flash a lot of this stuff, and obviously, if you're really interested in it, you can go back, you can stop the playback, and you can actually write down where the reference comes from and go investigate it further if you want. But mainly, I'm putting this in there not so that you'll remember all of it, but because I just get so pissed off when people go to their doctors and say, you know, I heard from Dr. Jonny that such and such a spice is really good, or such and such a supplement, and these doctors say, oh, well, there's not any really research on that stuff. So I'm putting this in there so that you know that when your doctor tells you that, they don't know what they're talking about. So here's some research on curcumin and its effects on regulatory mechanisms in the prevention of cancer, neurological, inflammatory diseases. We're going to be talking a lot about inflammatory diseases because actually every disease is in a certain way an inflammatory disease. So the fact that these spices have such powerful anti-inflammatory powers is something to be reckoned with. And we'll get into that a little bit more in the middle of the talk when I really talk about inflammation. But you're going to hear me say a lot of things about these spices and their anti-inflammatory and their antioxidant capacities. And I just want you to take that very seriously because, as we'll see, those are 2 things that really age us and contribute to just about every disease that you don't want to have. So here's an article from on curcumin, From Food Spice to Cancer Prevention. Here's another one on its inhibition of cancer-associated fibroblast-driven prostate cancer. Here's another one on its anti-inflammatory properties and how that may, in fact, help fight cancer. Here's yet another chart. There's a lot of these charts, and they exist because there's a tremendous amount of truth in them. Curcumin really does have a powerful effect on many, many different conditions. So here's another piece of research on its anti-inflammatory properties. And again, you'll come to see and appreciate, I'm sure, very soon why that's such an important selling point of all these spices, but particularly curcumin or turmeric. Here's something on colonic diseases. Here's something on neurocognitive and anti-inflammatory effects. Here's something on oral health. Again, colitis, colon cancer prevention. Anti-cancer potential, once again, cancer chemo prevention. So there's a lot of stuff on curcumin and cancer, just lots and lots of it. Here's something on Alzheimer's disease. And as you'll see as we get into this a little bit more, the connection to that probably, once again, has to do with inflammation. Many of you know Andrew Weil. He's the iconic integrative doctor, America's integrative medical authority. And this is right from his website, 3 Reasons to Eat Turmeric. And his 3 are Alzheimer's, arthritis, and cancer. 3 pretty darn good reasons to sprinkle turmeric on just about everything. So how do you get turmeric in your diet? These are some drinks that I've seen at Whole Foods. They're just basically elixirs that are made with different spices, and turmeric is the main spice in this particular line. You can make this at home. You can sprinkle it on scrambled eggs. You can put it, you can make a tea of turmeric. Here's a wonderful recipe for a creamy tea. You'll want to stop the playback later on and get this recipe. Warmed almond milk, turmeric powder, ginger, which we're going to get into in a minute, cinnamon, which we're going to get into in a minute, cayenne pepper, which we're going to talk about in a minute, a little bit of local organic cold-pressed honey, and you've got this gorgeous, delicious, warming beverage, and it's just filled with all these wonderful health benefits that come from the curcuminoids in the turmeric. I take curcumin as a supplement largely because, as great as it is, it's not terribly well absorbed. And to really get a clinical dose, it's probably necessary to take it as a supplement. I prefer this brand, Terry Naturally. They use a particular kind of curcumin called BCM 95. You can see it up there on the box. And BCM 95 has been pretty well studied and appears to be a little bit better absorbed than the average garden variety curcuminoids. So this is the one I like, and I consider this such an important compound that I consider to be one of the top 10 supplements, and it's certainly in my top 10 and something that I take every single day. Okay, let's move on to ginger. Now, when I added ginger to this list, I expected to be talking a lot about the wonderful effects of ginger on an upset stomach. We all know, they serve ginger ale in hospitals, and they give you ginger ale when you have seasickness, and they give it to you during pregnancy for morning sickness. And that's largely because of the deserved reputation ginger has as being wonderfully calming for the stomach. But what I myself didn't even know is the amount of research that's been done on ginger as a cancer preventative. It has very, very significant effects on tumor development. Cancer chemopreventive agent. Here's a review of its activity. Here's another major review article on the preventive properties of ginger in terms of cancer. Yet a third one. There's really dozens of them. And ginger is very well researched for its effects on cancer and cancer cells, and has a lot of therapeutic potential. Here we're going back into the gastrointestinal tract, which is what it's best known for, its ability to soothe that. And you can make ginger in a ginger tea. It's very easy. I do this all the time. Just cut up a bunch of pieces. You don't have to peel it or anything. Throw a little bit of lemon, some hot water, and just let the ginger steep in the hot water. There's no caffeine. It's great. You can take it at night. And I try to do this almost every day. There it looks really nice in that silver, little steeper thing. And there it is in a soup. You can use it in stews and soups. That's a wonderful creamy ginger soup. Doesn't that look great? And all those health benefits. So cancer, upset stomach, great stuff. Ginger has a really, really soothing and wonderful healing effect. It's a great spice to use for all sorts of things. There it is in a stir fry. So I want to get into now a couple of the subjects that really let us know why spices are as valuable as they are. And they have to do with their ability, these spices' ability to lower inflammation and oxidation. So let's spend a minute or two just discussing why these two things are so critical, why they rob us of our health, and why anything that lowers inflammation in the body, like anti-inflammatory foods or supplements or spices, why that is so very, very important. And you can see back here in 2004, Time Magazine did a wonderful cover story called Inflammation, the Secret Killer, the surprising link between inflammation and heart attacks, cancer, Alzheimer's. And all of this was incredibly true and incredibly ahead of its time, because the public hadn't yet really heard the term inflammation in any capacity other than, I have inflammation in my tooth, I have an abscess in my tooth, I have an inflamed thing on my skin, a pimple, or I have a sore back, it's very inflamed. And, we know inflammation in the sense of acute inflammation, which is the kind that hurts. But what we didn't really know, and what we're just becoming aware of now, is that there's a second kind of inflammation called chronic inflammation that flies beneath the pain radar, but actually kills us. And I've written a number of books in which we talked about the different processes that promote heart disease, that promote aging, and inflammation is always at the top of the list. One of the conceits I used in my book, The Most Effective Ways to Live Longer, and also in The Great Cholesterol Myth, we talked about, 4 things that age the body, that promote heart disease. They actually promote every disease, and they are inflammation, oxidation, stress, and sugar in the diet. Well, inflammation is at the top of that list. You talk to your doctor friends who do autopsies on Alzheimer's patients. Guess what they see in the brain? Inflammation. Inflammation is part of diabetes, part of cancer, part of obesity, part of heart disease. It's part of every degenerative disease, and we are walking inflammation factories. So anything we can do to lower inflammation is extremely important for our health. And as you saw in some of that research on the curcumin, so many of the properties that may be anti-cancer are possibly related to the fact that these spices are so deeply anti-inflammatory. This is a great chart that kind of shows the connection of inflammation to every major disease you can think of. And then there's oxidation. Now, oxidation is the damage done by free radicals that are found in oxygen. And a perfect example is that apple on the left of the screen. If you cut up an apple, you leave it out at a picnic, oxygen gets to it, starts to turn brown. It's kind of a rusting. It's like what happens to metal if you leave it out in the rain, leave it overnight in the air, it starts to rust. Well, there's an entire theory of aging called the free radical theory of aging that basically says we age because we are rusting from within. So oxidative damage, part of every single disease you can think of, certainly it's what makes cholesterol dangerous. Cholesterol is never a problem until it gets oxidized, then you get into some trouble with it. So oxidation is something we always want to be watching, just like inflammation. And so many of these spices, when I talk about how healthy they are, and I'm talking about it because they're anti-inflammatory and they're antioxidant, this is why, because oxidative stress is a major part of aging and a major part of just about every degenerative disease you can imagine. Okay, and look at what antioxidants do. So they support all of these systems in the body, largely because they help fight the damage done by these marauding free radicals, these oxygen free radicals that do so much damage, which is known as oxidative stress or oxidative damage. So when we talk about spices being antioxidant, don't think that that's some little minor thing. That's a major, major thing. And yes, each spice, you add a little bit here, a little bit there, but they add up and it's cumulative, and you're getting a really big bang for your buck when you add these spices to your food. All right, let's go back to the spices. Here, list of anti-inflammatory foods. You don't often think about spices as, superfoods, but look at this list of anti-inflammatory foods, and there's like, how many spices are there on there? And ones that we're going to talk about in this webinar: ginger, turmeric, those are 2 we just talked about. We're going to get to garlic, chili peppers, so all of these things are just very, very powerful, and they really are stealth health foods. Ginger and turmeric being 2 of the most pronounced. Okay, let's move on to oregano. There was a guy back when I started studying nutrition back early 90s, wrote a book called The Cure is in the Cupboard, and he was talking about oregano. He wrote an entire book about the health benefits and the curative benefits of oregano. Now, oregano has a lot of antioxidants. And in fact, in this one study that was done by the American Chemical Society, it was found to have the highest ranking of antioxidants of any herb. Really, really powerful in that regard. It appears to contain some diabetes-fighting compounds as well. With oregano, you're going to get the most bang for your buck with the oil of oregano. Not really the spice so much, although it comes from that, but the oil of oregano is just a killer when it comes to microbes. And for years, naturopaths have been saying, if you feel yourself coming down with something, just take some oil of oregano. Now, you can't really take it as an oil because it's just disgusting, but you can take it in a capsule. Grapefruit oil, oregano oil, these things are very, very antimicrobial. Here's WebMD. I hardly ever quote WebMD. It's extremely conservative. It's pretty much completely supported by the pharmaceutical companies. But here's even a conservative establishment website that's basically saying, if you look at that third paragraph, taken by mouth for parasites, allergies, cold and flu, fatigue. I mean, there's just endless uses of oregano and oil of oregano. So another very powerful spice. moves us up to chili peppers. You know, those hot red peppers, they come in actually all kinds of different colors. And their main compound in peppers that makes them so beneficial is something called capsaicin. And we'll get into that in a minute. Now, I have a little story that has to do with Hillary Clinton. And you might wonder, what does Hillary Clinton have to do with spices, or particularly with red hot chili pepper spices? And I'll tell you. So during the 2008 Democratic campaign, when she was running against Obama for the nomination, she was obviously, like anyone else who's running for an office, exhausted all the time, and she had this ungodly schedule. And I get a call from the New York Times, and the New York Times says to me, there was an interview with Hillary Clinton, and we asked her, where does she get her energy? How does she keep going? How does she keep it up through, this grueling campaign? And she attributed much of her endurance and perseverance and energy to red hot peppers, to hot peppers in the diet. So they asked me to comment on that. And that's kind of how I got into is there anything to this? Well, actually, there is something to this. Here's an article from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition on chili peppers and their effect on fatness and energy metabolism in humans. Again, the active ingredient being capsaicin, which is what is found in those red peppers. Here's another article on its effect on blood sugar, insulin, and energy metabolism. Once again, here's an article on capsaicin as an anti-obesity drug. How about that? Another one on energy balance. Energy balance, by the way, is just, scientific gobbledygook for calories in, calories out, and, how well you burn your calories and the effect of whether you store them or whether you burn them. So that's what they mean when they talk about energy balance. But again, lots of research on this. Here's an article that says capsaicin may have an important potential for promoting vascular and metabolic health. Again, really good stuff for an inexpensive spice. Red peppers with moderate and severe pungency prevent the memory deficit in diabetic rats with Alzheimer's disease. How about that? Works on the brain. So you have all these peppers, a lot of heat. Mostly the really, really hot part of it is the seeds and the stems. So you want to probably take that out if you're at all sensitive to that, or some people love the heat of that. But the peppers are plenty hot even without the stems and the seeds. And what do you do with them? Well, you can put them in scrambled eggs. You can put them in stir fries. You can add them to soups. And you can put them in stews. A really easy way to get that metabolism boosting benefit of capsaicin and the other compounds that are found in red peppers. Easy to eat, easy to find, inexpensive, great health benefits. There you go. Boom. Let's move on to garlic. Now, garlic is actually probably the number one medicinal food in the world. It goes back thousands of years. This chart, which I found, actually is a pretty good one, pretty accurate. It's been found to be helpful for the heart, for the immune system, helps kill parasites. It's a natural antibiotic, and it's great for blood pressure. And we'll get into that in just a second. Now, the young man who's done a lot of the research on garlic, and there's been tons. I mean, if you went to the National Institute of Medicine library, pubmed.com, put in garlic, you'll be reading all day. There's thousands of studies. But Matthew Budoff, who's a cardiologist at the UCLA David Geffen School of Medicine, he's done a lot of research on garlic. I've heard him speak, read his stuff, I've interviewed him a couple times. And really, really impressive stuff on garlic. This is a press release from something that he did where he found that it actually reduced plaque. Here's the findings from this particular study. Aged garlic extract sold under the brand name Kyolic was researched by Budoff's team in several previous clinical studies. It was shown to inhibit the progression of atherosclerosis. It was shown to lower blood pressure, improve oxidative stress, enhance circulation. How good is that? And the thing about garlic is that the kind of the magic ingredient, it's called allicin. It doesn't create allicin until you chop it up, because the two compounds that create allicin live in different parts of the plant. So if you were to swallow a whole clove of garlic, I don't know why you would do that, but let's say you're on a dare in a fraternity house or something, you got to swallow. It's not going to do you much good. It's got to be chopped up and broken down in order for those two compounds to mix together and create allicin. And I'll tell you one thing that Budoff has told me. One of the reasons that there's been so much much variety in the studies on garlic. Some of them are just fantastic, but some of them are not so great. People use different forms of it, different dosages of it. And so it's very, don't be confused by the fact that there may be some studies out there showing, it didn't do so much. There's plenty of studies showing when you use the right amount and you do it in the right way, you get some pretty profound effects. So here's a study on garlic for hypertension. There's a ton of stuff on that. Here's another one showing that a single meal containing raw crushed garlic influences expression of immunity and cancer-related genes, and that's in the blood of human beings. Anti-cancer mechanism of sulfur-containing compounds, of which garlic and onions are two prime examples. And then there's cinnamon. Now, here's the story with cinnamon. A lot of people have really proselytized for cinnamon for the treatment of blood sugar, and a lot of that comes from an early study that was done by Richard Anderson from the USDA. Richard Anderson is probably the researcher most responsible for us knowing about chromium picolinate. That was his baby. He did all that great research, he and his team. And in about 2004, they did this wonderful study that showed that cinnamon actually improves blood sugar, glucose, and lipids of people with type 2 diabetes. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. In the intervening, 11 years since this study was done, not all studies have duplicated this. They've been in and out. Some studies have shown great results with cinnamon. Some have not shown such great results. So it's been really very mixed. But my feeling is in looking at the last 11 years of research on cinnamon that there's more good than bad. It's one of those spices, one of those foods, one of those interventions, if you will, where there's just no downside to using it. Potential lots of upsides. So I'm including it in this 7 super spice for that reason, even though admittedly some of the studies have not lived up to the early promise. But here's one showing that it was very effective for lowering hemoglobin A1C. That's really the way they diagnose diabetes is by your hemoglobin A1C levels. Here's another updated systematic review of and meta-analysis of all the studies of cinnamon use in type 2 diabetes. On the whole, they're very positive. Here again, the effect of cinnamon tea on postprandial just means after eating. Postprandial glucose simply means your blood sugar after you eat. And cinnamon has a nice muting effect on that. Here again, more experimental evidence, more reviews. And here, once again, big surprise, turns out that cinnamon may also have some anti-cancer properties, which is a very nice little side benefit. So if you're taking it, for blood sugar, look at this. It may also have some effects on cancer cells, not a bad side effect. In fact, here from the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, which is hardly some left-wing, cancer organization, it's pretty mainstream. If you look at that paragraph right beneath clinical summary, you'll see in traditional Chinese medicine, cinnamon is used with other herbs. In vitro studies have demonstrated that cinnamon has antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, immunomodulatory, antimicrobial, and anti-tumor properties. Pretty nice resume for an inexpensive little spice that tastes just great when you add it to coffee or tea or any of a dozen other things I can think of. Really, no downside. I'd make cinnamon part of my basic spice rack. Here's a little bit more on melanoma, cell proliferation. Good stuff. Then we have sage. Now, sage is a really interesting spice. This is a great piece that was done in Life Extension called Sage the Medicinal Herb. And sage, once again, 2 big selling points. It's an antioxidant, and it's a powerful anti-inflammatory. Again, I hope you're beginning to see how important those 2 things are to your health, to your cellular health, to your anti-aging health, to just about every single thing that you care about, every metric that you care about is influenced by inflammation and oxidative damage. So when you're getting antioxidant and anti-inflammatory power in an inexpensive spice that makes food taste good, it's just a no-brainer that you should be adding that, as frequently as possible. Here's a great review article on the chemistry and pharmacology and medicinal properties of sage. Memory, it seems to have a very good effect on memory in a couple of studies, and in both younger people and older people, which is really kind of nice. This is a study of sage in enhancing memory in healthy young volunteers. It's a really nice little thing. And here's one where it improves memory and attention in healthy older volunteers. So both age groups, not bad, right? And here's an interesting article that showed that sage actually improved glycemic control and lipid profile in type 2 diabetics. And what this really means is when they gave sage to a test group in this study, they found that it lowered their fasting glucose. That means it brought down blood sugar. It lowered triglycerides, which are very important and I consider to be a serious risk factor, far more important than cholesterol. And finally, it increased HDL cholesterol, which is generally thought to be the good cholesterol. So that's a lot of nice little effects from a simple spice like sage. So I hope I've begun to open your eyes to what's available in the spice world and the health benefits that are there. There's so many of these great little charts all over the place, and you see the same ones come up. And yes, I picked turmeric and cinnamon and ginger and peppers to talk about, but there's so many others. Nutmeg and cumin. Here's another one, spice up your life. And again, the same usual suspects keep popping up: turmeric and ginger and pepper and cinnamon. But again, cumin, nutmeg. Here's a whole bunch of medicinal herbs in your kitchen, and it even includes thyme and basil and black pepper, which, by the way, black pepper augments the effects of turmeric. So it's great to take black pepper with your turmeric. It actually makes it more bioavailable and a little bit stronger. So you can see all of these things have these benefits. Here's spices for weight loss. And again, they include the cayenne pepper because of, as we saw, its effect on energy balance and metabolism in general. Cancer-fighting spices, we've just talked about all of those, with garlic and ginger and cayenne pepper and turmeric again. There they are, beautiful, easy to use, and so underappreciated. And I hope that this webinar goes a little bit of a ways towards opening your eyes to the medicine cabinet in your supermarket that people just don't pay enough attention to. Now, as many of you know, we have our new book, Smart Fat. There's basically several principles in Smart Fat, and they start with eating more fat, eating more fiber, but the third one is about flavor, and it's in there for two reasons. One is when you use these spices, it makes your food taste better. And let's face it, if health food tastes like straw and sawdust, nobody's going to eat it. I don't care what it does for you. Nobody stays with a diet that tastes like crap. So the flavor is a very big part of our book because it's what keeps you eating the food we want you to eat. But the second stealth benefit of those flavors is what I think you've seen in the last half hour or so, which is all the anti-inflammatory firepower and the antioxidant firepower that these spices have. So begin to use them, make friends with them, try them in every different kind of way. There's no right or wrong. You can just, mix and match with them. Have your kids add them to the dish so that they can be part of the whole cooking process, and get friendly with these spices. Most of them have like a spice rack in our kitchen that hasn't been used, and it's got dust on it, and you don't even know if the things are still good. Get some nice new fresh spices and just start using them on everything. See what they taste like. Get to know them. See how they mix and match with other flavors. And you really will be opening up a whole world of flavor and a world of health. That's my family. Why do I put them in the webinar? Because I love them and I like to share them with you. So that's what we look like as a family. And I thank you so much for coming. And I hope this has really alerted you to what wonderful properties the everyday spices have to offer you in your diet. Thanks again for coming, and I will talk to you real soon.